Welcome to Session 2, individual presentations in the Feed the Future track. If you have not already done so, please silence your devices now. Each of the presentations will be allotted a maximum of 12 minutes. After all of these speakers have presented, we have time for questions and answers. It is my pleasure now to introduce our speakers, Timothy McDermott of Ohio State University Extension, presentation entitled The Four Seasons Farm to Family Food Production Education.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get started. Bless the clicker. Yes, okay, it only took 5 tries. So a little background on me is I've been in Extension for about 7 years. I'm second career, and before I joined Extension, I practiced in veterinary private practice. And when I was in small business, we had several challenges that occurred to the business world that were disruptors. And the COVID pandemic, and I don't want to be flippant or minimize it because it has affected everybody's lives, it continues to affect everybody's lives, but in terms of how it affects small businesses are profound, because I'm still a small business person as a side hustle, and it really can do a negative impact. But what generally a disruptor does when it comes through and hits small businesses is it makes those small businesses have to get lean really, really quick and have to be agile very, very quick as well. So when I was managing a small business veterinary practice, we had numerous disruptions that came through. I was in charge when the dot-com bubble hit and the Great Recession. And what that meant is I lost a lot of my competition. And if I was good to go after and I was able to stay afloat and get really nimble really quick, then I had openings that I could get into after. So when I joined Extension, I started doing basically neighborhood and place-based interactions. I'm in Franklin County, Ohio. That is where Columbus is, main campus, Ohio State there. 13th largest city. I have 1.3 million clients. We have a fairly sizable Extension office, and the niche that I filled was actually to go out into the community. So every class that I ever taught before COVID was in a library, a church basement, a urban farm, a community garden, somebody's backyard. That's where I would go to make sure that I was hitting the various neighborhoods that are most economically challenged, trying to engage my neighbors who probably can't really come to main campus Ohio State and deal with Campus Park. Do we have anybody here from Campus Park? Good. So then what happened is in, say, February, my supervisor got us all together and went around the room and said, you know, we know it's coming. Who can deliver their programming virtually or pivot? And probably 2/3 of my colleagues said they could, and 1/3 literally said they couldn't. They said, we're going to ride this one out. We were sent home on March 17th, and we were told we're going to be gone until April 8th, okay? The same year, not April 8th, like this past year. Okay, that was 2020, not like 21 or 22, or maybe 2023. Who knows? So I had a full slate of programming that I was going to do in places all over the place. And in fact, I had a program where I was going to go teach poultry a couple of counties away with a buddy of mine. And she's like, hey, let's try Zoom. Because Zoom was not new. It was new to us. But Zoom actually jumped into the thing created by COVID and expanded when other people were crushed. So there's a group that took advantage. So we set up a Zoom, and you know, before Zoom, she's like, I got 25 people registered. I'm going to drive 100 miles and get up there. So we set up a Zoom, and we do the very first time. This is right after COVID. We knew nothing about Zoom. I was Zoom bombed on my very first Zoom. Okay, horribly, horribly Zoom bombed by a clover bud named Becky. Okay, so Becky had more knowledge than Extension educators on how Zoom works, and you can see that she wrote all over the presentation every slide. We figured out who it was. She's like 8 or 9 years of age, but she's horribly Zoom bombed. Now, if she tried that now, no way she's getting past my defenses, because I know my Zoom now. But then we had no clue what to do. I was Zoom bombed way worse than by Becky down the line, but that was sort of the thing, is we were starting up and all that stuff. But on that very first class, we had 114 people join, okay? And I was like, okay, this is different, right? Because I never had 114 people join me in a church basement or public library. We couldn't fit them. And in fact, that video, even with Becky drawing all over it went well over 1,000 views in that year alone, and still is probably close to 2,000 views now. But that was something that I learned right away was, you know, there's a need for this content, because when we were sent home on March 17th, that is the onset of growing season, and my area of skill is in local food production. I got tidal waved by people asking me about growing, mostly individuals. So what I did was, don't go back, stay. No. So what I did when I left was, I went through all of the groups that I interacted with in their various places in Franklin County, wrote them all down, and then I would email them 5 at a time every day. What can I do for you? How can I support your organization? What I would do for them is I would go to their, once I got permission, I would go to their gardens or their urban farms and I would video, and then the classes were in partnership with them so that they could market, thinking of them as a small business. They could market, they could drop their socials in, they were hurting for people, for money, volunteers, materials, all of the stuff that they used to do, sales, right? We had disruptions there. And then I sort of looked internally, because what I found out was we actually didn't engage main campus at Extension. I don't know if you guys, whoever's an Extension educator in here, and I'm not asking you to raise your hand or even answer, because I hate when people do that when I'm in a presentation. I just like to shut up and pay attention. But do you engage your colleagues, like look internally? So I, as a well-being thing, just offered all of my 20 coworkers classes on how to learn how to grow, just to get together with my coworkers and just to keep morale up. But then I put out in our social media and our on-campus and the various things for Ohio State that I offered unlimited free gardening classes to every team, department, and organization at Ohio State, kind of not really knowing just how big Ohio State is. And it's actually pretty big, because I just got bombed with asks. In fact, I had 30 people respond within a couple hours of sending that out. And so then what happened was, it just snowballed from that point. When I was doing outreach at the local level, I was delivering PowerPoints and stuff in a lot of places, and I was teaching people how to grow, and people would say to me, Tim, I can't make your class, can you record it? And I'd be all like, no, I can't record it. I'm standing in the middle of the garden, it's just me, I have no support staff, I've got my phone, and that's about it. Not really thinking that I probably could have done something, and certainly could do that now, especially with what we have. But doing Zooms for a year forced me to record everything, okay? And so at the end of doing a year, I had basically created a series of classes seasonally for the entire 12-month period. And, you know, if you've never been to Ohio, we actually are pretty good at growing stuff. In fact, with a little bit of season extension and some other techniques, we can grow all 12 months out of the year. So what I did was I had a website already, and I had about a year plus worth of recorded classes now on about every topic you can think about with food production, because I engage beginners generally. I try to engage them, create success right off the bat, right? If anybody who has ever tried to grow anything, what drives you out of there right away? That is when you fail right away, right? You bought all your seeds, you did all your stuff, you've already got your recipes, you've got your Instagram locked and loaded, you're ready to do stuff. And so what I did was, took all of that stuff, and then I had to go backwards in chronological order it, and then put it on the website. So that, and then I didn't know that, so I did poultry too, because the number of people that wanted to raise chickens was the same way. Everything sold out. 2020 was crazy. But then it created an entire growing calendar for all 4 seasons, 365 days a year, that can be used to teach people how to grow. And I used that a lot. Built that into a YouTube period, and then started to partner with my FCS colleagues on food production stuff. Okay, you guys just gave me some more time. That's great, because it was 5 minutes a few minutes ago, and now it's 5 minutes again. This is perfect. I can talk a long time. So lessons that I learned were this, and I'll be perfectly honest, and I don't see either of my supervisors who are attending this conference here. I run before I walk, and I recommend you do so. But I'm from medicine, and decisions had to be made in my world in 3, 4, 5 seconds. We didn't have an hour. We didn't have a minute, generally. So pivot quickly, use your opportunities, jump into your space, and don't ignore an opportunity. One of my favorite quotes is a Thomas Edison quote that says, Opportunity is missed by many because it dresses in overalls and looks like work. That is kind of the way I look at it. If you want to do any digital content creation ever, take all your own pictures and videos constantly all the time. And a phone is fine. A phone works great. Okay? If you have grant money, GoPros work great too. And then identify and leverage your resources. So we actually at Ohio State don't have the most robust social media, but we do have good engagement for alumni, students, families, parents, colleagues. And so I would just bomb things out of there. And then the other thing I like to do is when I engage, I didn't grow up in Extension. I'm not a 4-H'er. I didn't actually know anything really about Extension until I joined Extension, although I had professors that were Extension vets that taught me. They didn't really talk about it. But whenever I would do a class anywhere on Zoom, my very first slide was this slide. And this is trying to introduce not only the Ag and Natural Resources program area that I'm in, but all 4 program areas, because they all link, and they link very, very well. Partner with your FCS educator. I teach people how to grow food and harvest food, and she teaches people how to cook with it, the nutrition of it, and how to preserve it. Basically, you're going all the way from seed to plate. At that point, we do lots of farm to table. Engage the 4-H youth in gardening. I'm doing a program right now with our teen leadership where we're using this content, and we are teaching them how to grow for 12 months out of the year. We have harvest festivals and all of that stuff. And on that, I'm done. So this curriculum, and Michelle has a QR code, but this curriculum is open. It's not password protected. It's shared. It is on the website Growing Franklin Year of Gardening. And go ahead and share it with any of your clients. It's gotten heavy usage. It's Master Gardener, continuing education, you name it. But it walks somebody any point in the growing season. They can jump into it, start growing, and catch all the way through the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Lauren Errickson, Rutgers Cooperative Extension presentation entitled Market Ambassadors, Creatively Increasing Community Engagement with Farmer Markets.
Do I have a clicker? Oh, fabulous. Thank you. All right, great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am Lauren Errickson. I actually recently made a switch from Rutgers Cooperative Extension to now serving as the director of Rutgers Gardens, which is the University Botanic Garden at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. But before making this switch, I had spent the past 6 years working with food access programs in Extension. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you this morning, specifically our Market Ambassador program, which is a part of the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market. So I'm going to give you an overview of the market, talk a little bit about the goals, objectives, and the outcomes of the Market Ambassador project, and then just share some challenges and lessons learned through the program. So first, the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market. We like to think of this as a market with a mission. And that mission is twofold. It's both to increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables for improved health outcomes in the New Brunswick community, and it's to support local agriculture. So like many farmers markets, we are interested in the agricultural viability, specifically in the New Brunswick area and New Jersey as the Garden State. So welcome to the Garden State, if you haven't already been welcomed. So the Farmers Market is a project of Rutgers Cooperative Extension in partnership with Johnson & Johnson and the City of New Brunswick. So the city is a vested partner from the perspective of improved health of residents and also downtown revitalization. Johnson & Johnson is involved from that health perspective. So they are very interested in community health outcomes across the board and specifically related to us through food. And the market started back in 2009, so we have been in existence for quite some time, and it's been growing ever since to operate now in multiple locations throughout the city, which is one of the ways that we overcome transportation barriers. So we know that within New Brunswick, like many urban communities, residents sometimes have challenges accessing fresh, healthy foods. So transportation is one. Cost is another. So at the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market, we accept SNAP and offer double incentive funding for customers who are shopping with food assistance benefits. That also includes incentive funding for senior and WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program vouchers. We serve a diverse community in New Brunswick. New Brunswick is home to about 56,000 year-round residents. That does not include the population swell that we experience when Rutgers University is in session through the academic year. And we know that this represents a lot of cultural diversity in the city. This includes different racial and ethnic diversity. And with different people, we know come different languages, come different habits, and come different food traditions. So we see the farmers market as a real opportunity to kind of look at both improving community health and local agriculture by engaging all of these different aspects that come together in the farmers markets. So the Market Ambassador Project was an opportunity for us to take this a little bit deeper. So this was a USDA funded project with support from the Farmers Market Promotion Program, and we received a grant in 2018 to do this project. And as noted, the title of the project is Market Ambassadors, an innovative approach to increasing sales of local foods at farmers markets. So this is looking at the agricultural side, supporting local ag, helping farmers be successful. But being who we are in New Brunswick, we couldn't really forget about the health and nutrition benefits either. So we were able to really kind of bring these two things together through this project. So the big picture goals of this project were to identify produce preferences in urban New Brunswick, to collaborate with local farmers to make these produce types available for sale at the market, and then to go back to the community and do sort of a you spoke, we listened campaign to let people know the produce you want is here and it's accessible and affordable. So the first step was to hire market ambassadors who were our liaisons between the farmers market and the community and the farmers and the university. So what we did is we looked for individuals from both the New Brunswick community and the Rutgers community, because these were kind of our two target audiences in terms of bringing people to the farmers market. So we were very lucky to find a diverse group of 4 people who were able to work with us over the course of this project in many different ways. So the first thing that they did was to ask consumers about their food preferences, because that's, the best way to learn about what people want is to ask them. They then helped consumers try and learn about new produce types and then spread the word about the market. So you can see these 3 tasks of the market ambassadors very closely follow the goals of the project overall. So the survey piece of this was our first informational intake. So we wanted to ask consumers about food preferences. So we did a community-wide survey process. We spoke with over 850 people. And we found them both at our farmers markets because we wanted to hear from people who were already our customers, but we also looked to engage community groups in the process. So we know that sometimes working with community groups that are already a point of contact for local residents can be much more successful than me standing on the side of the street with a clipboard by myself. So we went to houses of worship, to schools, to businesses, to cultural and health centers in the city of New Brunswick. And we asked people to tell us a number of things, but I'll highlight here the 3 most important fruits, the 3 most important vegetables, and also the produce types that they wanted to find but couldn't quite find in New Brunswick. So we heard a lot about what people liked. And so the list of top 10 vegetables that we heard are very common things, and things that people in New Jersey are already growing. So this is good news. We're doing a good job meeting some of this demand already, which was great. We also asked about fruits, and it started to get a little interesting here because we started to hear both things that can be grown in New Jersey and that are grown and are already part of some of our Jersey Fresh campaigns. Actually, I'm going to click back just for 1 second. To say, if you haven't had Jersey tomatoes or Jersey corn, they're kind of a thing. So I recommend it. You're a little early visiting us in May, but come back in the summer if you can. Jersey peaches, Jersey blueberries are also very well known. But then we started to see things show up like mangoes, oranges, not in the top 10, but we heard about avocados. And so these are produce types that we can't necessarily grow in New Jersey, but that are important to the local residents that we serve. We also started to hear about unique types of culturally relevant fruits and vegetables. So just to give you an overview of some of these things, these are some of the types of foods that started to show up on the list of items that were desired but hard to find in New Brunswick. So things like tatsoi, quintoniles, which are a type of amaranth green, dandelion greens, and bok choy. We heard about aji amarillo peppers, bitter melon, red okra, papalao. And then we started to think about, okay, so these are some pretty unique things. We have heard about some pretty common things. How do we meet this demand? Because it's very diverse. So we did a few things. First, we started to increase our farmers' production and capacity to offer some of the things that the farmers were already bringing. So capitalizing on, okay, we're successful here, keep bringing the tomatoes, the corn, the apples, those common things. Next, we started to think about how to address some of those other items. So things like the red okra, the bitter melon. We found success by looking for new farmers to add to the market who were already growing some of those things. So for one example, Snapping Turtle Farm was a local organic farm specializing in some of these things. They had the seeds, they had the skills, they had the product. We were able to bring them into the farmers market to expand their marketing and sales opportunities. And then the third thing that we did, again, thinking about some of these things that, no one locally can really grow avocados to market scale, but we know they're culturally important. So we also started to work with some farmers who were growing some of their own things, but could also buy in these other products. And this was important because we were meeting consumer demand in a way that helped consumers find everything or close to everything that they wanted in one location. Thinking back to that transportation barrier, we know that a lot of the community members we're serving have a hard time getting to wherever they're going to buy their food. So if we could have more of these things at the market, that was helping them be successful, and it was helping our farmers increase their sales because the residents would come and purchase avocados, mangoes, and oranges that they bought. And those same consumers could then buy the Jersey tomatoes, the Jersey corn, the bitter melon that we've started to grow. So it started to kind of offer this really well-rounded experience. We also wanted to promote that we were doing this. So this is where the market ambassadors really started to help us spread the word. So we had some existing social media channels. So we were using Facebook, we were using Instagram, and we tried to be really diligent to say, who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, what we're selling, where and when they could find us so that people knew where to actually show up at the market. And then largely due to COVID-19, we started to promote our safety practices because we wanted to make sure customers who were coming to the market felt comfortable doing so, and they would know that we had their safety first and foremost, especially during the pandemic. We would also do printed materials, both in terms of flyers in multiple languages. We were able to partner with some university collaborators to have flyers translated for us so that we could then go back to a lot of those cultural centers, those houses of worship where we surveyed community members. Our ambassadors went back and distributed this information to help spread the word to those same people. And we also did a mailing campaign. So this is something, especially during COVID, when a lot of people weren't going to the cultural centers where they would have gone pre-pandemic, we were able to print cards and do a postal mailing to targeted zip codes in the areas of the farmers market. And that was something that we found to be actually less expensive than we anticipated and successful in getting people to know about the market in their community. And then finally, when people came to the markets, we wanted them to have the chance to try things. So pre-pandemic, we were able to do on-site sampling of different things. But during the pandemic, what we did is we partnered with a community kitchen that had a commercial kitchen license to prepare samples to go. So people were able to have food safe and COVID safe sampling to test out all of these different foods. So how did it work? The last step was evaluating the program. So from 2018, when we were awarded the grant through 2022 or through the 2021 season, we saw a 188% increase in the dollar amount of sales at the farmers market. Huge win for our farmers. We found that 79% of consumers always or often found what they wanted at the market. So this was good. But it does show there's a little room for improvement. I mean, we'd like this to be 100% of people finding what they want. So that's an area that we'll continue to consider. And this was just an interesting fact. 35% of consumers heard about the market from a friend or neighbor. So that's telling us word of mouth is pretty important. So just to conclude on my last slide, we learned to be flexible. We learned that reducing barriers is continuing to be important through all of our work. We know that we're working with diverse groups, and continuing to build relationships with community partners is going to help us meet all of those diverse needs. So I will just thank my collaborators on the project, and also say that we do have an article in the new Journal of Human Sciences and Extension journal, so please check it out. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to introduce our next speakers, Joshua Campbell and LaDonna Hines of Oklahoma Cooperative Extension, with presentation entitled Northeast Oklahoma City Flavor Market, Increasing Education and Access to Healthy Foods in Urban Oklahoma City.
He just ran out the door and left you.
I'm just like, wow, where is he at? Okay, I'm LaDonna Hines. I'm the Oklahoma County Extension Director, and Oklahoma County is in Oklahoma City, and we were right under about 1 million in population. And for 50 years, we were on the west side of Oklahoma County, and our story begins in 2015, and that was when we moved actually to northeast Oklahoma City, which actually was a food desert. So when we moved there, it was kind of my desire and my passion, my vision to be able to open a farmer's market for that community because it was a food desert. I knew that I had to have several things in place before that could happen. And first of all, the thing that I needed in place was to have staff that was a passion, that had the vision like myself, and that came about with Joshua Campbell, our urban agriculture educator, and Joy Laughlin, our horticulture. So without these two staff members, this would have never happened. And then the second thing is going along with our previous speaker is we did receive the USDA grant, Farmers Market Promotional, in 2020. So we were writing the grant during COVID. So that was a little challenging. We were doing everything from home. But we did receive the grant, and we were able to hire a farmers market manager. And we also, within that grant, put Land Institute. They're a local nonprofit organization that's very known in the Northeast Oklahoma City. So we put them as a sub-award so they could do some services for us. And that's kind of the next part of this presentation is Josh is going to kind of tell you guys a little bit about kind of...
It has your slide, it says mine, so that's so
Yeah.
strange.
I did not rename your slides.
Oh.
Very strange.
Okay.
Wow, that's weird. I think I have it on a thumb drive in my bag.
Is
Maybe it's the 131?
Did you try this?
Yeah, I did. We can go without slides if we need to.
Well, no, that's the whole thing. Yeah. So they didn't have your slide.
Well, they have it titled, but it got saved as Dr. McDermott's.
Do you have that pen? Natasha?
Yeah, I'll find it.
Can we stick it in there? Sorry. I mean,
Absolutely.
It wasn't
No,
our...
go right ahead.
Hey, this is classic extension. You just learned to roll. I have not worked in extension for terribly long, but I've learned to you've got to learn to roll with what you're
I
throwing.
brought my thumb drive, my laptop. It's all
I know
my
that he's never ran the slides in, so I do know that. So I'm going to kind of talk as he does that. To kind of. So, anyways, I've been in extension for 20 years, and Josh came aboard within extension as an urban ag about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, along with Joya. So, anyways, we are in the Northeast Oklahoma City area, and it is still considered a food desert, although probably about 2 years ago we did get a grocery store back. Homeland came to our area. But
Fall of 21.
Fall of 2021. And we are northeast Oklahoma City, although northeast Oklahoma City encompasses a bit, but we are the farthest northeast Oklahoma City. So our market actually began in, the kickoff was May the 3rd of this year. We had about 150 people in attendance. So we're really excited. Without our farmers market manager, which is through the grant, we could not make it happen. She's only part-time, but none of us, you guys know in extension, we don't have time to add something else to our plate. So that is very vital to have a farmer's market manager. And then he's going to talk about a little bit of Lynn Institute, but also within that award Lynn Institute, we hired them to do our marketing. Like I said, they're really embedded in Northeast Oklahoma City, so they're doing all the marketing. Again, we did not have time to do that, but with the grant that allowed us time to hire someone else to do the marketing efforts. And they did another part, which eventually Josh is going to talk about. Can you tell them?
I mentioned the educational, because it's not really covering it, but I wasn't going to get up. But Josh and I also have partner on urban ag education for small farmers. So we've developed a school called, he's not going to cover this today, but I can fill in while he's going to talk about it. So we developed at this time, it's a 6-week or an 8-week. We're going to do it every year. This year we're doing a 6-week. So once a month we meet with 25 urban farmers, and we have a morning session. It's called the Beginning Farmer Market Gardening School. So it's one Friday a month, and we meet in the morning and we do educational sessions on starting with the soils and then moving into crop production and then moving into all the way through disease and insect management. Courtney did soils. I said that at the end we do. We kind of wrap up with the food safety certification and all that. So we take these people that are either church back, community gardeners in their church, or maybe they're starting an urban farm, maybe they're in a subsidy residence where they have a little bit of land, or maybe they're a backyard gardener who's partnering with their neighbor and they're going to do a farmer's market booth together. And we put them through the training. This was a small part of the grant in that we just said we were actually already doing the market gardening training, but we just beefed it up, and it includes in the afternoons. The morning is training, the afternoons we visit farms so they can meet local farmers and see what they're doing in our community. I guess I can add that our community is 1.3 million.
No, we're around under a million.
Okay.
Our county is 1 million,
Yeah,
our metro is 1.6.
Right.
Yeah, metro is 1.6 and the county, because our county in Oklahoma, we're really spread out. So we've got a lot of rural suburbs around Oklahoma City that would be in some of it in our county.
So I'm actually a dietitian, so that was kind of my wing, is to be able to bring the food to the people and to help them. We have a dietitian that does food demos and that type of stuff. And Josh and Julia are more working with the farmers because that's what we want to do. We want to help the beginning farmers to be able. So our market's a little bit different. It's more for beginning farmers, that first step, people that are kind of want to take that first step to start selling at the market. And as Julia said, the education we provide them. So we're a little bit unique in that we're just kind of beginning. And we do food education, we do different classes, we have different entertainment, we have walking trails where we're at, so we're doing a lot of fitness and that type of stuff. So we're really wanting to make it a destination for the family.
I could mention one other thing that Josh won't cover is we went to the community when we started this idea and formed an advisory group that maybe Josh is going to say that, but we tried to set our market up in an opposite time from when the one farmers market in the Northeast District was on Saturday mornings. So we're on Tuesday evenings, which seems kind of weird. Well, it's not really weird. There's always evening markets, but we're from 4 to 7 p.m. So we're trying to catch people on their way home from work. They're still catching the bus route because the bus route goes through our campus where we're housed until 7 every night. So people can come if they want to come in the evenings.
Josh, you finding it?
Well, I have it here, but it's trying to make me connect to the internet before I could transfer it over to my thumb drive, and so.
When you're getting situated, I was just going to say, you were just talking about farmers markets. You've talked about farmers markets. Do we want to just do some Q&A for the other presenters while we get this one set up? So, are there any questions for Lauren or first speaker?
You kind of mentioned that there is another market in the area on Saturdays. I guess. Is there much saturation of farmers markets? And if so, like, how have you managed that to make sure you're driving people at the right time?
So in New Jersey, yes, there is saturation. So a couple things that I can just mention briefly. One is that as an active market, we would sometimes get calls from people who say, I want to start a market in my town. Can you help me? And I will try to respond and say, yes, but before we do that, let's take a look at who's already doing this. Can you partner? Can you collaborate? Can you serve as an extension of a market that exists? So connecting some of the dots rather than drawing a whole bunch of new dots, I think is useful. Another project that I was working on was looking at not necessarily adding new markets, but adding product to existing markets through value-added initiatives. So looking at, okay, farmers are growing fresh produce, they can't find a market for it because farmers markets are already full of farmers, and if there's too many, nobody makes any money. So looking at value-added preservation as an opportunity for those farmers to still grow produce, turn it into something else, and sell it to the same customers, maybe, who are at that existing market to avoid the saturation.
So she's gonna kind of answer our other market.
Well, I'm fine. I'd love to talk to you later.
Yeah.
Or we all would, but we are sticking with Oklahoma grown at this point, but you really opened up the minds a little bit about that, because they do have to go to 2 destinations to get other produce, and we have tried to stay completely Oklahoma grown, which is a Oklahoma Department of Agriculture program. So all of our produce is only Oklahoma grown at this point.
And then the other market that opened up kind of right before us, they're not Oklahoma grown.
Yeah, they have peddlers, and what we call peddlers, I mean, that's not the right word anymore, but they
like
have brokers that bring,
crafts
buy,
and
and
stuff
sell.
like that.
Yeah.
So our mission's a little bit different.
I'm curious, when you did your presentation, you talked about oranges, bananas, and how does that work with WIC? Because I thought, you can only use.
So for the WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program and the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, you can only use those vouchers for locally grown fruits and vegetables. However, our incentive program for the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market, which is supported by funding from Johnson & Johnson, is those incentive vouchers are eligible for any fruits and vegetables. So what we try to do is help customers use the WIC or senior vouchers that they have for the local food. They then earn, say they spend $10 on local food, they earn $10 in incentives for any fruits and vegetables, so they can use those on the oranges, the bananas, the avocados, because those are kind of health focused. So it's sort of getting the local and the health piece contributed. Because from a health perspective, we want people to eat fruits and vegetables, whatever they like. Just eat your vegetables. So we've kind of let them use the incentive dollars for
I
that.
have a follow-up question to that. So how do you manage with the farmers? Because I know I operate farmers markets in New York City, so that's why I'm asking you this question. So with the farmers, do you have some sort of guidelines as to like the sourcing? And how do you manage that whole process?
So so labeling and having things separated on the tables is the short answer. But I'd be happy to chat further with you, and I'll let Josh continue.
I'll be brief, and we can get back to good discussion. So,
And you've got time.
okay, thank you. So my colleagues, LaDonna and Julia, did a great job of kind of setting the stage and talking about this. Thanks for your patience. You'll notice that this says feasibility study. So this is an ongoing project, and really what I'm going to focus on is how we got to some of the decision making that we made in terms of where we're going with this project. And so using the word feasibility. I will say you see here it says flavor market. Our kind of what we started with was this idea of we wanted to bring the flavor of Northeast Oklahoma City culturally. It's the largest concentration of Black persons in Oklahoma are right there in this 3 zip code area. And when you think about some of the history of the area, folks like Ralph Ellison, author of Invisible Man, actually a young pastor by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. Was told he was too young to be pastor at the Baptist church in this community, and so then he went on to do better things. So rich history and culture in this area. We also have a large and growing refugee population. Oklahoma, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but is taken per capita the 3rd most refugees of any state in the country. So we have a growing population of refugees, and so really this kind of convergence of people and cultures and food needs, and like LaDonna said, as we launched our new campus, we used to be on the campus of OSU Oklahoma City, which is kind of like Rutgers Camden. It's a satellite campus of the main Oklahoma State University campus in Stillwater. We were there since the 1960s. We were relocated in 2015-16 to where we are now, and kind of transplanted into this community that, for all intents and purposes, we had not really been serving well. So we were transplanted there and said, here's your new home, and it was kind of like a duck out of water. Where are we? How do we dig in? How do we make an impact where we are? And really, what are the needs here? And so that's kind of what this is about. Our team, most of us are young to Extension. myself and Julia have been in our roles for 4 years, but we hit the ground running. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about our feasibility study. LaDonna mentioned that we launched our market about a month ago, so very, very new market. And we're still hoping to see that be successful. There's things we learn each week. Actually today, it will be going on. And then project evaluation. How are we evaluating it? How are we going to report to our stakeholders and people that this is important? So from the outset, we looked around and said, there are lots of issues in Northeast Oklahoma City. When you think about this 3 zip code area that gets defined as Oklahoma City, is larger than a lot of towns. Oklahoma City geographically is in the top 5 size cities. So Oklahoma City as a whole is over 600 square miles. Yes, I believe that's right. So they've annexed and annexed and annexed and annexed for years, and so you can drive 45 miles and still be in parts of Oklahoma City. So with that, Northeast Oklahoma City, 3 zip code area is a several mile area that until 2021 was a food desert. And when you look at all of the negative statistics that you can possibly look up at Oklahoma, Northeast Oklahoma City really is those are there. So from a health standpoint, food access standpoint, educational attainment standpoints, Northeast Oklahoma City really is dealing with all of those issues. And so when we set out to do this, we actually set out to do this January, February, and March of 2020. And as we all know what happened in March of 2020, so we had to quickly adapt in the way that we were going about our feasibility study. A lot of the qualitative pieces were conducted via Zoom, but we were able to still get into the community. And we knew that we had to work collaboratively and to build trust and to work with partners that were already embedded and entrenched in the community. So the Lynn Institute for Health was a key partner on this and really helped us reach the folks that we were trying to reach. We were able to get around 500 interviews and survey responses from hundreds and maybe thousands of individual community members and businesses to really inform this study. So we had 3 main objectives. Number 1 was to identify various quantitative data elements that related to our target market. So we knew that issues were bad in Northeast Oklahoma City, but we really wanted to redefine at this moment in time, what are the population demographics, who are the clientele that we're reaching, what are their needs, what are the health issues that they're facing, food access, and other social determinant issues that they're facing. And then objective 2 was more qualitative understanding, representing the opinions of Northeast Oklahoma City. So what do people feel about the opportunities that are available to them in Northeast Oklahoma City? And so we were trying to better understand that through residents' responses. And then the last 2, we wanted to do an overview of community assets, so kind of map community assets and understand what are the existing resources, what gaps exist, so that we can know where we can really be most effective. We also, a piece of this was to facilitate some urban ag assessments. Like Dr. McDermott said, we were inundated in March, April, May of 2020. We were trying to work from home, figure out how to work remotely, and just getting flooded because there was more need than ever. People were home, they were worried about their health, they were worried about where their food was going to come from, they wanted to grow a garden. And in this community, it is very urban, but urban density in Oklahoma looks a little bit different than it does in some places. There are still yards and lots, and people are growing. And there is an interest in urban food production, and people that even want to do it as not just a way to provide food for their family, but as a way to maybe even provide some income and to barter and trade resources. And so we looked at who are the people that would consider themselves urban food producers, and what needs do they have. And what we found, we'll talk about that more later, but there are farmers markets across Oklahoma City. There's some major poshy farmers markets in some of the downtown areas, but this area was not served by food access, especially fresh food access. Until fall of 2021, there were no grocery stores. For the past 2 decades, the USDA has classified this area as they do as a food desert. So short of a corner store that sold some bagged food items or canned food items, there were no grocery outlets. So in short, the outcomes of this study kind of revealed things that we already knew to be true, but also illuminated some things that we were surprised by. So we found out that, of course, Northeast Oklahoma City is a food desert. There are high rates of poverty and of diseases that are health food related, diabetes, heart disease. In fact, diabetes mortality in this 3 zip code area is twice as high as the rest of the county and the state. So we found that to be really alarming. Very limited access to food that is healthy and fresh, and generally there was an expressed need for the market. So about 84% of the respondents said, yes, we want this market, we will participate in it. And even the urban producers, one of the things from the outset was, we don't want to make this, while we want to have a consistent supply of fresh produce, we want this market to be community driven and community supported. So the people that are going to be vendors here, priority is going to be given to people within the community. We're not trying to get people to drive in 100 miles to come and sell their produce at our venue, because the point is to focus on how we build the community that we are in, this 3 zip code area that we now call home and that we're trying to partner with. And so we actually have, through our market gardening school, we're pipelining students into that program. We're giving them training and resources and actually walking them through every step, whether it's the hurdles of licensure and regulations that are required at the state of Oklahoma and at the federal level to sell produce. We have a new law called the Oklahoma Food Freedom Act. Food safety people don't like it so much, but it allows somebody from their home to produce baked items and backyard grown produce and sell up to $75,000 worth of those items and have a home business. And so there are some safety regulations that govern that, but it really for the first time has allowed small scale urban food production to be something that is a viable option for somebody to make some income from. So we wanted to support that, and that's really driven what we have done with this project. So again, we used the Lynn Institute for Healthcare Research, which is a great community partner, to work with us collaboratively on this project, and they really drove the qualitative interviews and things that we collected through this. And some of the things that came out of this were that there are some real barriers to the market that we need to address before really just jumping out into this. Some people said it's not really Northeast OKC and it's too far away, because Northeast Oklahoma City, if you know it, it's kind of long and narrow. And so there is a kind of the heart of what you know as Northeast Oklahoma City is at 23rd Street, just a few blocks east of our state capitol. Well, our office is at 63rd Street, so there's 30 blocks, which is a big area for some, but it's in Oklahoma City. That's we're just kind of spread out that way. So there were some challenges of how we brand and identify ourselves as Northeast, although we are very much Northeast. We also found that transportation, which is interesting that seems to be a recurring theme for people in communities like this. Transportation is an issue. And in a place like Oklahoma, we are getting much better in terms of the transportation that is available to people, but most people drive cars. Most people get around that way. And so I would say most of the last decade, that has been an ongoing issue, and probably one of the biggest players for people living in a place like Northeast Oklahoma City that's a food desert to be able to get to and access fresh produce. We do have a bus route that we were able to work out with the Embark, the city bus authority, that brings people right to our front office. We are also working through some other opportunities, maybe to provide vouchers across the metro for people, or across this area for people to be able to not even have to pay for the bus route to get to us. When we launched the resident survey, we, like Julia said, we really wanted to make decisions each step of the way based on what the community's desires were. And so we didn't want to come in as the Oklahoma City County Health Department, Oklahoma State University, and say, we've done some research and this is what's best for this community and we're going to do this. So actually our board of decision makers that is making the decisions for us is driving every decision. So we're evaluating. Like we said, we launched the market. I'll show you a few pictures here in a minute. We launched the market a month ago. I think we've had 3 or 4 markets. These are some photos from one of our markets. We're still a small market. We chose to be an evening market in the weekday because some of our data that we collected and some responses from the community said we don't have weekday access to fresh produce. We can hitch a ride with somebody. We can get on the weekends when we're off work. We can go and we can get produce, but we don't have access during the weekday. And we also want a community space that's safe for our kids, our families, to have something that's an event in the weekday. And so that's kind of why we chose Tuesdays. As we evaluate this project, this is an ongoing thing that we're doing. We're really looking at 4 areas. We want to better understand what is the overall financial impact of the market to the community and to the producers within the community. We're talking people that live a few blocks down the road, potentially growing in their backyards or in small acreages that we're helping equip to sell at this market. What's the story there in terms of the impact to them? What is the impact to the community? So we're going to more explore that. What is the producer impact? Again, the direct impact to producers, and are we increasing capacity of producers with this market? And then overall, what is the impact to us as Extension in Oklahoma City? Are we seeing new and diverse audiences participate in our programming? Are we seeing an increase in terms of the traffic that we have at our programming? And so with that, I'll show you one last time some photos, take some questions because I'm out of time. I will say that, again, this is an ongoing project. We're learning as we go. We don't have it figured out, but I will put our team up against anybody because from the outset, we didn't have history and baggage of extension work coming. We were all pretty much brand new and coming on at the same time with the exception of our fearless leader, LaDonna. And we said, we're not going to operate in silos. So I'm an A&R educator, got a horticulture educator. We have FCS educators, 4-H educators. This project from the outset and everything that we do in our office is team-based. Everything that we do. So we have a health component and a FCS component, a youth component, horticulture, agriculture, community development component to every single program and initiative that we do. And we may have somebody at the steering wheel with the expertise, but we are coming behind each other and supporting each other. And I think that this project is a really good example of that. So thank you.
I live in Oklahoma City from 1996 to 2000, so I lived on the northeast side, over by almost like the Penn area.
Penn and what?
The mall.
Penn Square Mall, yes, a little west of where we are.
Yes, and so what are the zip codes? Because you kept mentioning zip codes, but I didn't see the actual zip codes.
I haven't had enough coffee to remember those. 73111 is the...
Oh, okay. That's Northeast 50th. Yeah.
63rd and to 50th would be 73111. It turns to 73110. And then I forget the third one.
Okay, because I lived in those zip codes.
But if you give me just a moment, I can look those up for you.
Oh, that's okay. I was just trying to see if it was the area because I could send some people to your farmers market.
Absolutely, please do.
From those zip codes because I owned the business when I was there, and my husband at the time was the assistant attorney general for the state. And so another question, thank you. Another question is at that time, Walmarts were opening up. And so my father-in-law had a garden, but most people had their own like community garden, but Walmart was like the big outlet at the time.
If you were at Penn Square Mall, they basically filled in a giant lake and filled it in with soil and built a Walmart on top of it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. So that was the only, place that people could get produce in that area. So I'm just excited to see that. I was there in September.
You were there in September?
Yes, and so most of the extension work, most people would go to like OU, where you had people from OU coming into that area in the past, so it's good to see.
Well, so OU Health Sciences has a presence there, so certainly from like the nutrition and health standpoint, but we work very collaboratively with OU Health Sciences. Well, great. You need to come next time you're in Oklahoma City. Come visit us. We'll take you out to lunch or something.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thanks for the question. All right.
We have about 2 more minutes. So does anyone have any questions for Tim or any of our other speakers? So gentleman right here.
Actually, I was going to ask you about the ambassadors. So you hired ambassadors, you paid them for certain work, for a certain amount of time, for a certain rate. Can you speak to that a little bit? And then maybe I'm kind of interested too about like how the Oklahoma City model maybe compares to that, because it seems like there's needs assessment that's being done. You're using people from within the community that you're hiring. Do you see that as like another adoptable model for more extension work? Is that something that you see doing again in the future, even in the absence of grant funding?
Hopefully, yes. And that is basically the premise. So we did hire the individuals from the community. They were all hired part-time, and they were, we had to work within, the Rutgers confines of how you're allowed to hire people and what different classifications they can have. So we went with something that was up to 20 hours year-round so that they could help us in the off-season, working fewer hours, but developing some marketing materials and building some of these relationships. And then during the peak season, they could swing up towards that 20 hours and be on the ground at the market doing this work, be in the communities. I think for us, we needed the grant funding to really get it started. In theory, what could work going forward is if a market were to become increasingly successful, hopefully charging vendor fees would bring in some money to support programs like this. We are very fortunate to have the funding we do from Johnson & Johnson that has supported the base operational model of the market such that we haven't had to charge vendor fees. So that's something, we would kind of have to look at. If the funding went away, how would we continue in the future? I'll also just say briefly, so this is one project that's part of the New Brunswick Community Farmers Market. There are many others, some of the panel discussions we'll be talking about later this afternoon. So one of the things we do is work with students and other volunteers and other extension staff to do nutrition education. So we have a panel, I think it's section 6C, I want to say, this afternoon. So we can talk more about that piece of the market there also. Oh, and in, what is that, 7? Do we know? Yeah. We also have a panel in session 7, but it's about connecting health and extension, and we're going to highlight a fruit and vegetable prescription program that was also affiliated with this farmers market.
Great. So we're actually out of time. So there's now a little coffee break up in the Scarlet Lounge. So if you want to find the speakers, if you still had questions, that's a great way to connect.